Okay, I'll just ask them to start their video.
Good morning. Just checking that we've got everybody online from City of Wanneroo. Is that both Councillor Bronwyn Smith and Councillor Jackie Huntley online?
Yes.
Great. Good to see both of you. Can you just have a quick shout out in the so we can make sure we can hear as well?
Yep. Here, can you hear?
Yes, I can.
Yep, I can hear as well. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear and see you. And I assume there is a series of officers, is that correct? Online as well? Great. Well, as we have everybody online, I will officially open today's meeting at 9:35 a.m. and I would like to acknowledge traditional owners and pay respects to elders past and present on the land in which today's meeting is being held. We have all 5 panel members for this part of the meeting, and as everybody is aware, the meeting will be run in 2 parts. The first being Part B, associated with the application from the City of Wanneroo, and the second will be Part C, associated with the application in relation to Cockburn or City of Cockburn and WAPC. There are, as I've already said, 4 members to this meeting. Online, we have Councillor Bronwyn Smith, and we also have Councillor Jackie Huntley. In the room today, we have to my furthest left, Jason Hick, specialist member. To my immediate left, we have Lee O'Donoghue, who is the Deputy Presiding Member, and my name is Francesca Lafanti, Presiding Member. There are no apologies for today's meeting, and there are no members on leave of absence. Minutes for this DAP meeting, as well as other DAP meetings, are available will be available on the website. Members, could I have a show of hands that you've duly considered all matters before you in relation to this item, including the R13? That is unanimous for the minute taker. Members, are there any declarations of interest? Nil for the minute taker. We will now move to item 3.1, lot 70, number 77, Queensgate Road in Lansdale. We have 2 presenters and we also have officers available. And we will move first to the presenters as they read in the agenda, Peter Simpson and then Jacob Martin. For presenters, just a reminder that we have a 3-minute time frame for your presentation. All material that you've given us already has been given to the panel members. As you would have seen on today's meeting, everyone's voted that they've received them, that they've read all material provided, and I would encourage you to focus on the key points you'd like to get across to us. DAP Secretariat will provide support in relation to the timeframes. Thank you. Over to yourself.
Hopefully Jacob's online. I haven't seen him this morning, but apparently he is. I'll be very brief because obviously the key issue here is really a traffic matter with the access onto Babylon Ben. I just wanted to make a couple of comments before Jacob starts. Obviously, one of the key issues associated with school is there's one access point. There's one access point into and out of the site, and that access point is a long driveway. So we're seeking to provide another access, and that assists with the functioning of the school. It assists with emergency services. Obviously, the access is in front of the playing fields in the schools all the way to the back. So we really need, and I think the City of Wanneroo understands that there needs to be a secondary access. I suppose the question is where and how. And I'll leave Jacob to deal with that matter. The only other thing I want to just raise, whether you wanted me to, obviously we got the alternate recommendation as part of the process, so I haven't had a chance to put in any commentary on that, whether you'd want me to do that or not, or leave it to later.
No, you can do the commentary on it, that would be fine.
So obviously, let me just pull it up. In terms of the conditions, I'll just deal with the ones that sort of stick out. There's a couple in there that sort of don't really seem to make matters. Obviously, 3 and 4. 3 and 4 relates to the really the matters we're dealing with today. So obviously, if the JDAP's of the view to approve it, then 3 and 4 in our view aren't required. And the only other one which we don't really understand is condition 14, which requires amended site plan showing the location of existing crossover on Queensway. So the footpath location, a front fence and electrical substation fencing, we don't really understand why those are actually required given that there's no changes. Other than that, we're comfortable with the alternate recommendation. So I'm happy to pass it on to Jacob to discuss the traffic.
Thank you. Over to Jacob Martin for comments or for your presentation.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I believe I have provided a pretty thorough response in my written response, so I won't belabor the point. I just want to go through the 4 points that I've raised as part of that letter. The first of which is essentially as a rebuttal to the RAR from the city and the concerns that they have around identified hazards. The first one is that the proposed distribution of traffic is incorrect, which obviously we've gone through a review of the catchment for the school and determined that this reflects current operations. And I point to the last point in my letter of regarding that item, which is going out there on site. You can see that all the traffic arrives via Queensway at the moment. Any sort of assertion that suggests that that's going to flip to any great extent, I think, is not supported by current evidence. The city has asserted that the road reserve is too narrow to accept the design vehicle, while the road reserve is narrower than anticipated at 13 metres instead of 15 metres. That doesn't affect its actual carrying capacity or the width of operation for a coach service, which we have shown through a swept path analysis. That swept path analysis is entirely aligned with best practice. It operates at a reasonable vehicle speed, and all wheels and obstructions are, all wheels are retained within the carriageway and all obstructions are avoided. So I don't see any situation where that will constitute a hazard in itself. And the sightline analysis that we undertook is entirely consistent with a 40-kilometre-hour environment, which I think is pretty conservative for the location, given that all potential crossing movements are aligned with either a give way stop line or a bend in the road. So on the whole, I see no traffic reasons why there should be a lack of access to Babylon Bend. I think the configuration that is proposed suits what is necessary to provide both emergency access and access for other vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Panel members, are there any questions at this juncture to the first two presenters?
I just have a quick question about coach services. At the moment, the school does use coaches, and I gather that they just they come in that from that Queensgate Road, and they loop around. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is that problematic at the moment?
It's difficult because obviously it does two things. Obviously, they've got to loop around. They're in and out of one access. About 40% of students apparently use the bus service.
So, okay, because I was going to ask you about the bus service. What exactly is it for excursions or to transport them home, or how does it work?
I think it's mainly for transport to and from. I think, Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the time they actually come on to drop the kids off, stay there. They probably do use them for excursions, but that's not the predominant use. And then they wait and then drop the kids back.
And obviously it's a hired surface. I mean, some schools actually have their own coaches, but clearly this one.
I don't actually know that answer.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have some questions from traffic perspective, certainly to Jacob. I'm interested in some further information regarding the need for the two crossovers. Given that their proximity is so close together and they both have two-way movement, why is there a need for two crossovers? The scale of the increase doesn't seem huge in the school, and I'm curious as to, one, why there's a need for two crossovers. And my second question is around controls on the use of that crossover, those crossovers? You've indicated in the documentation that we've got provided, you've talked about the predominant use of it for teachers and a number of other things, but I don't see any controls that limit all movement to all parties coming through those two new crossovers. So that's my second question. And my third one is in relation to and I'm going to have the same question to the officers, the substantiation for traffic distribution. I'm familiar with many schools, and current distribution is not always a reflection of future distribution. When traffic access points change, parents or other people attending the school will typically find the easiest pathway to the school. So I'm interested in the rationale for your trip distribution. As I say, I'm very familiar with that. I'm also familiar with schools that are taking a much broader catchment, so they are not necessarily within a walkability, and the propensity then would be for transport through vehicle. So those are my questions around trip distribution and rationale and justification for it, because I see that those two crossovers give you an easy access point back to through the site, and I've just got to get my little picture that I've got here, takes you back to the other entrance points onto the main streets. So yeah, that's my three questions. Over to yourself, probably all to you, Jacob.
Deal. Thank you very much. So first of all, the two access points. The two access points are located in pretty convenient locations, not only to be able to distribute the future staff movements, existing and future student movements, but also to provide direct access for fire services. So they align very nicely with the future building envelopes to create a safe and direct route through to those edges of the site for fast response. The arrangement of those two crossovers also provides some useful flexibility. And you can see in the TIA, there's a design drawing that shows what we might look like as we get to potentially larger vehicles. At the moment, the site's only running quite small coaster type vehicles. They fit into almost all spaces, and they don't really interact with traffic in any different way than a large car. But a coach, if it gets the limit of a 64-seater coach, that is a less maneuverable vehicle, and creating an opportunity where we can have in via one and out via the other, where we can minimize the impact on traffic movements in and around pickup and drop-off time is very valuable for the site function. The second question was around, was that distribution?
Yeah, the distribution's the last one.
Okay.
Limiting people to crossovers.
Oh yes, limiting. Thank you.
The controls. You've made comment about
Yes.
the people using them, but the plans that I've got before me, I don't pick up any controls that prevent full movement on both the existing crossover and the proposed new into the site.
And okay, so if we're talking directional controls, the current plans don't show any differentiation between the two access points. They kind of are differentiated just because of the way they align with the boundary road network. So we'd anticipate that vehicles coming from the south are more likely to use the southern access point, and vehicles going to and from the north were more likely to use the northern access point. That sort of splits the traffic and minimizes the impact on any particular location. Not that the traffic volumes are particularly high, but that is an additional benefit. There is the potential that as the bus service requires a larger vehicle, that differentiation in terms of one-way movements might be valuable, and I've shown how that would happen with the in-situ crossovers as shown. If we're talking about differentiation for type, requiring that staff only use a particular access point, going through and assessing the impact of each of those crossovers on the surrounding network. I see no reason why we would need to specify a particular access point for staff or exclude it from use by the parents for pickup drop-off. To some extent, the configuration of the site itself will tend to support access from the north from Queensland, just because that's where the vast majority of the car parking is. But for a network function, there's no real need to exclude. So we've kept everything as open as possible and shown, the full impact of what we anticipate under those circumstances as part of the TIA. The last question is about distribution. I think that's quite valid. For this school, the catchment is quite broad. It will remain quite broad into the future. And so as we've looked at this and looking at the distribution of traffic to the site as it sits, the expectation is that a large proportion of those vehicles will continue to arrive, from the higher order road network, Alexander Drive and Hangarra Road in particular. There are the near field of residential population is predominantly in this existing land estate, but also to the west and the south. That traffic is likely to split either along Kingsway and up Babylon Bend, which we believe accounts for the 30%, or from further to the west, where they kind of have a choice between looping through to Queensway and accessing the site from the north, or coming along the south. So I don't think we're looking at a future where a large proportion of the student population is within these near field residential zone. I think all of the evidence or all the history points to a quite large catchment of students approaching from a wider distance. Your point around primary car as driver pickup drop off, I think is again very valid. There are some students who will live in walking distance, and we could observe them coming in to and from the site. And there was some activity around the site for students on bikes and walking, but given the distances that we have involved, the expectation is that those students that aren't on the bus run are more likely to be dropped off. And so we've retained essentially what we have at the moment, which is about a 40% split to bus service through to the future.
Thank you. Those are my questions at this juncture. Any other questions from panel members at this point? If there are no other questions at this point, panel members, you can come back, but we will now go to officers at the City. Officers, would you like to introduce yourself and then either make any comments you wish or any responses to any of the matters you've heard today?
Thank you, Chair. Greg Bowery, Manager Approval Services. I'll let the team introduce themselves.
Shabnam Ross, I'm the planning officer.
Sorry, could I just get you to hold for one moment? We have a little bit of difficulty hearing you, and I suspect it's at our end, so we might have to just get you to just be...
Can you hear us at the moment?
Yeah, it's a little bit distorted. Just one moment, we'll just see what's happening.
Sorry, I'll just check the microphone input on my end. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, the volumes are maximum on our end. I think it might just be because we're in the bigger room.
So we've been advised that the volume is maximum where we are. I'm not sure how you're going at your end.
I'm just trying to work. You should be able to pick us up from our laptop audio mic, so that should be working fine.
Thank you.
At this range.
Thank you.
Okay.
Shabnam Ross, I'm the planning officer.
Brianna McClellan, the senior planner.
Fiona Jones, land development engineer.
Yep.
And Ian Barker, traffic engineer.
Just off camera.
Thank you.
So thank you for the opportunity to respond. The City's recommendation is largely related to the access arrangements proposed in this application. We're not disputing the substantive issues around the additional classroom buildings, car parking layout design. those matters are detailed in the RAR. The city received some 40 to 50 submissions, largely objecting and raising concerns about the traffic distribution changing and accessing the site from Babylon Bend. In our investigations of that, we're looking at whether or not the changed distribution of traffic into Babylon Bend via local access roads, which are primarily designed to service residential development, is an appropriate change. Now, the issue that we've seen with the school and the distribution of traffic is that the school's located to the east of the city of Wanneroo. In Lansdale is pretty much the eastern portion. There's no other catchment to the east. And the primary catchment for this school is going to be people coming largely from the south and southwest, not from to the degree that it would from the north. It would be much more from the south and the southwest with that larger distribution. Being a private school, a lot of people come from further afield, thus bus services and the like. So looking at that modelling, we've got a local access street that wasn't designed to service as a local distributor function, which Queensway Road is. Queensway is the distributor function order of road that services a use like this as a school properly under livable neighbourhoods. So if you refer to livable neighbourhoods, a school should be accessible from a neighbourhood distributor with a 17.2 metre road reserve width. This Babylon Bend is at the moment only a 13 metre road reserve, not the full 15 metre road reserve width, which was required under the structure plan. That's been identified in our report as well as an issue. The redistribution and the balancing, whether it's 60-40, 50-50, 70-30, though it's fundamentally going to change the way people access the school and where parents are going to seek to drop off and pick up their kids from, and that will move from being accessed via a distributor road to a large portion of that distribution being moved to the local access streets, which were not designed to support that nature of use. So, and that will cause friction and concern with the residents who have not experienced that. It's not been something that they were anticipating having to deal with, and having people parking and accessing along Babylon Bend and within the other local access streets in the immediate vicinity, as we know occurs with schools. If people will take the shortest route. Queensway Road is a more circuitous route for a lot of people coming from the south, so they will access from that southern direction in much greater numbers, in our view. The issue that we have with the road reserve width is the structure plan identifies it as Babylon Bend as a 15 metre road reserve. It's already partially 15 metre road reserve width, having had 2 metres acquired from the lot to the south. If this application is to be approved, then there is a direct nexus between access from Babylon Bend and providing a minimum sufficient road access width of 15 metres as an access way. That would then also allow the footpath to be relocated and designed safely, because at the moment it's back of curb with no gap between the fence and the curb and the footpath. So anyone parking parallel to Babylon Bend would be opening doors straight over the path with no sort of space to get around. So there needs to be a wider verge if this development were to be approved along Babylon Bend to make it functional and safe for pedestrian use. So that's in a nutshell, that's the city's concern. I can probably refer to our experts, our traffic engineers who are in the room, who can provide a bit more detail in response to the arguments from WSP.
Thank you.
Fiona, would you like to, or Ian? I'll just turn the camera to Ian.
Yeah, look, Greg's summed everything up pretty well, but the only other issue that I would raise is just the appropriateness of Babylon Bend. It hasn't been designed as a wider access road, which again, Liverpool Neighbourhoods does recommend for the secondary access to schools, that they still need to be designed for that function. And yeah, the road network doesn't reflect that.
Thank you. Are there any other comments you wish to make?
Is there anything else that you would like to add to that, Fiona? Are you happy with that?
I think that sums it up.
Yeah. Thank you. And we're happy to take further questions during debate.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions at this juncture to city officers? Yes, we have a question from one of our members. Let me put my glasses on. It is a member, Jackie Huntley. Would you like to ask some questions?
Yeah. Obviously that Babylon Bend is an issue. Now, you actually said that part of it is already 15 metres. In the amended version, if section 4 is to be followed, does that mean that whole road reserve has to go to 15 metres? So how much is left to actually widen?
It would be, thank you, it would be the section of Babylon Bend that is fronted by the subject property. So it would be that length of Babylon Bend that the school fronts onto.
Okay, could I ask, is that practical and doable?
Well, that would be for the school to respond to. From our view, it would be relatively achievable, but I think the school should be able to respond to that.
Would you like a response from the applicant?
Yeah, could I have a response from the applicant? No.
Yes.
That's
So
going to do it.
Sorry, Councillor. We've had a discussion with the school, and they're not adverse to providing the 2 metres if they get their access points onto Babylon Bend. You just need to be aware that it will require the removal of a mature tree, because what will end up happening is if you look at the site plan, the driveway currently will need to move over to compensate for that 2 metres, and there's a mature tree that sits in that location that may not be able to be retained.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor. Would you like any further questions?
Yeah, just thinking of that tree, is there any way where the entrance is, that could be moved so the tree could be retained, or is it really of the whole wide?
Yeah, so it's the driveway that sits. The actual entrance itself is not necessarily the issue. It's actually where the driveway sits on the site. And once you move that driveway 2 metres into the site, that's where it has an issue with that mature tree. The tree I'm referring to is the one on the proposed full site plan between the 2 existing demountables. If you can see that on the plan.
Do we know what type of tree that?
So I've missed your question then, Member Huntley?
Do we know what type of tree that actually is?
Do the officers or the applicant have any information on that question?
Can I add the architect sitting in the room who might have a...
Yes, thank you.
It is some sort of gum tree, like local tree. It's not a foreign tree.
Was the member able to hear that response?
Yeah, was that a gum tree rather than? So it's not a protected tree. It's not a chewit or an ancient.
Sorry, yeah, a gum tree.
Yeah.
I couldn't say it was.
She's only provided information. It's a gum tree. No further detail in terms of the specific type.
No, that's fine. So that tree could actually be replaced with a more rather than a sapling, but a more mature type of tree. So that actually does go in at some point along that area. Once it's finished, it could be part of their landscaping. I'm sure looking at the landscaping anyway, you could include a few of those mature trees to help that along, that might help. And again, because of the heat mapping, we really need to make sure these trees cover these car park areas.
I suppose just respond to that. I just raised it as a mature tree. I'm not saying that, you know, one way or another, whether it's retained. Obviously, we're providing quite a fair bit of landscaping on the side already. I think, you know, if the tree was removed, there could be another location around there. We could put in another tree. I don't think that's.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just checking that it wasn't a tuet or something like that, where you have got one of those mature ancient trees that need to stay there, but a gum tree can easily be replaced and will grow pretty quick, so it's not a problem.
Any other questions to city officers or applicant? I have a couple of questions to city officers.
The councillor.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Councillor Bronwyn-Smith, do you have some questions?
Just wondering if the officers wanted to comment on the comments that were made about recommendation conditions 3, 4 and 14 in response to one of the earlier ones.
Thank you. 3, 4 and 14. So condition 3, I think if that is accepted in terms of the sweat path, then condition 3 probably does fall away, which is the sweat path for the coaches. I'll just ask. I don't think we would need that on the basis of the information provided. Correct. Yeah.
Can you guys speak a bit louder, please?
Sorry, yeah, we're just conversing with their experts. Condition 3 could probably fall away. Condition 4 was in relation to the widening, which we're just discussing, which we believe is necessary to make the at least get a safe footpath. We do note, and we still maintain that Babylon Bend is not a proper level of road access for the use, i.e. it should be a distributor road providing access to a school, but if it is, then condition 4 should remain to achieve a 15-metre road reserve width. Condition 14 was largely a tidy-up condition because there was some discrepancy between the information on the plan relating to the crossover to Queensway and the actual situation on site, because there's been subsequent works done. So 14 could fall away, but the intent of that was just to try and make sure that it was reflecting the current situation on site.
Okay, but despite this, I guess, alternative, the city's position remains the same in terms of what the recommendation was.
Yeah, the recommendation is significant, carefully considered, because obviously we're not opposed to the school expanding, and that's certainly expected and supported. The issue that we have is the interaction of that changed traffic flow and the impact that it will have within a local road network that hasn't been designed for that level of activity in terms of drop-off, pick-up, peak hour operations of schools and bus services running through those local access streets that they're not designed for.
So if I can continue, just on that, I'm just trying to work out in the future. So it is still possible with a different traffic arrangement in the future that you could see that the city would be happy for the school to expand. I'm just trying to understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Queensway would provide sufficient access in our view for the size of the school. The issue with the use of the current crossover was addressed by the city back in 2015-16 with our engineers advised that they recommended the school separate the entrance and exit crossover. So you had an entry crossover and an exit crossover, so that made it easier for for access to the school from Queensway. That hasn't been done at this stage, but that would be our preferred scenario going forward.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have a couple of questions. Can you talk us through the existing circumstances in the road? I'm specifically talking about Babylon Bend and the other minor street, Severn Way, in that area. What I'm after is information about the current use, and the current traffic restrictions in terms of vehicle size or turning on those streets. You've talked a lot today about Queensway Road, and you've also raised some concerns about the capacity of these streets that are from the requested crossovers. Can you talk us through what is the current situation regarding vehicle movement and vehicle size in that area? And that includes things like delivery vehicles, trucks, those kind of things. And the second part of that is, what are the roads capable of taking? You also talked about capacity of roads in terms of volume. So I'm interested in a response to both the capability of the road and in terms of vehicle type and size, the capacity of the road in terms of volumes, and current restrictions on use of road by the public.
Thank you. I'll just turn to Ian Barker, who will respond to those points.
There's camera as well.
Can I ask if their traffic engineer can
Sorry, just before you go, we might need the traffic engineer to move a little bit closer. It's difficult for us to hear clearly online.
Babylon Bend is a access road type 4 from livable neighbourhoods, so it is the lowest category of access road that's generally only built to service residential properties, low order. Expected maximum volume is 1,000 vehicles a day. It's designed, it will take rubbish trucks. That's generally the largest size vehicle that this category of road is designed for. A bus is an as-of-right vehicle, so can a bus get round that road? Yes, it can, but it has to use the entire road reserve or the entire constructed road width, and we wouldn't design it so that that road can be used easily. Technically, yes, a bus can get through there, but it's not desirable, not normal, and you wouldn't design it to that level for everyday use by the bus. Livable neighbourhoods does say that yes, an access road, standard of road, is acceptable for an access to a school, but it needs to be of a wider, so built to for that use. So you would generally widen the road reserve, widen the road pavement so that there is sufficient room for parking and vehicles can still use the road.
And the current controls on the road usage?
There are no controls other than the way that the road is built. So, if somebody is having furniture delivered or in a large truck or something like that, as I said, any as-of-right vehicle is able to use the road, but it needs to use the entire road reserve, and it will be a difficult access, but there is no restriction.
And are there controls on parking and stopping in the street currently? And is that occurring in relation to the school?
No, because currently there is no general access to the school from Babylon Bend. It's fenced off.
Those are my questions at this juncture. I'll go back to panel members. I'll just have a quick look at my other, look back at it, see what have any other questions. over to any panel members. Do you have any further questions? Okay, if there's no further questions, we will move to the agenda. There is a recommendation at the beginning of the RA, and as is required under the standing provisions, we will deal first with the RA recommendation. There is also an alternative recommendation provided to us. So we will first go to the recommendation. If there's no further questions from panel members, we will go to the recommendation, which is a recommendation for refusal. Is there a mover for the RA recommendation as written? It is moved. Member Bronwyn Smith. Is there a seconder? Is there a seconder for the RA recommendation for refusal? There is no seconder. For the minute take, it lapses as a result of no seconder. Is there a mover of the recommendation, the alternate recommendation as provided? It is moved. Jacqueline Huntley. Is there a seconder for the RA recommendation as written? It is seconded. Leo Donoghue. Would the mover like to speak to it?
Yeah. Look. I think there are issues. Having a school built, you know, obviously this was built in the 1990s. They do need to expand. The only way they're going to expand, unfortunately, is with the use of the other roads around the area. Queensway, yes, it does have the opportunity, and I think parents who are dropping off the kids are going to still be using that. But I do think the idea of getting a bus around the back is probably actually okay. If it'll take one of our bin trucks, it will certainly take a bus. And with only 100 and I think it's 129 extra students, even if they all got on a bus, that's approximately 4 buses. And a bin truck coming around there. I don't think it's going to be a huge issue. You know, unfortunately, residents are going to have to accommodate that in the fact that they're going to have some form of traffic there, but they're not going to have 1 million cars. We're not expanding the school to 1,000 students. The school does need to expand. This is going to come up. If it doesn't come up now, or if we do this, we say no to this now, it's going to be an issue in the future. And if the school is willing to take that road, to extend it and widen it by 2 meters, then really that is going to make it, even though it's not gazetted as a correct road, once it is 15 meters wide, technically it will then pass the sort of pub test that the vehicles can get down there, and also make it probably easier for the council access for the trucks, the bin trucks as well. So I can't see a reason why we would refuse this at just on the traffic. So I am going to say yes to the amended version, and I hope you'll consider this too.
Thank you, Member Huntley. Would Member Leo Donoghue like to speak to it?
Yes, look, I actually agree with a lot of what the councillor has said. You've got a school that will inevitably expand. We see this quite often on this panel, and to me it's inevitable. And as a result of that expansion, there is a need to provide for additional access onto the site, which I think has been done in a manner which I understand residents in that particular pocket of Babylon won't be very happy with it, but I think it's a logical and a workable solution to the expansion. It will certainly allow for traffic that comes into the school site, including coaches, to have different options for getting in there and leaving. And on that note, I'll also comment that it's predominantly around 2 times every day that you're going to have a large number of vehicles that are coming in, collecting or dropping off. This is not something that is going to occur all the way through the day. So it's, I think that this solution in terms of access and egress is acceptable, particularly given that condition that we'll look at widening of Babylon Place. I think the actual expansion of the school is also appropriate within the planning context, and I think it's a well thought out design. And for that reason, I'm going to be supporting the alternative recommendation for approval, subject to condition.
Thank you. Is there any other speakers on the motion before us?
Francesca, just before we go to the other speakers, can I just clarify, the R13 request didn't provide a preamble for the provided the condition, so can we
yes, that's correct.
Preamble by adapting that of the primary recommendation?
Yes. Members for online, what was just being clarified from the DAP administration is that we don't have a preamble, and I'm just going back to the agenda. So it would be, the preamble would be 1, approve DAP reference as per the documentation for the refusal, so the same reference number and accompanying plans in attachment 1 in accordance with clause 68 of deemed provisions. So it would almost be the refusal language in point 1 with some modifications to read approve.
Perhaps just subject to the following conditions at the end.
That's correct. Yes. Yep. And so instead of for the following reasons, it would be subject to the following conditions. Members online, was that clear what was just happening then?
Yeah, that was clear.
Thank you. Any further speakers on the motion on the table?
Thank you. Having regard to the application and the responsible authority report that has been put to us, I am supporting the motion for the alternate recommendation, and I suppose mirroring, maybe not so much repeating comments made by previous speakers. I concur that the context of looking at this site in its location and surrounding neighbourhood, if this was being planned from scratch as a school site, absolutely there would be considerations given to road access, which may mean this site would be approached somewhat differently. But that not being the case, we need to deal with it in the context that it sits. However, that being said, that shouldn't be an automatic assumption that any outcome should be acceptable, notwithstanding having considered what's been presented to us in relation to, and agree definitely secondary access to the site is warranted and should be supported, and as is proposed, I'm of the view is reasonable. Likewise, I can understand and appreciate in the local surrounding residential areas that has raised some interest and some concerns. However, notwithstanding those concerns, I think what is presented can be accommodated through what is proposed and the condition set, and really that was the most substantive matter in consideration in relation to the application. It's a modest expansion to the existing school site, as was highlighted before, and it's relevant to the traffic considerations, not a substantial increase in terms of school capacity. So overall, and on that basis, I'll be in support of the alternate motion. That's a recommendation, therefore the motion moved and vote accordingly.
Thank you. Any other speakers on the motion on the table? Yes. We have member Bronwyn-Smith.
Thank you. So some of the, I guess, speeches in support have mentioned the inevitability of the school expanding and the need for it. And it's my understanding from my question to the officers about the possibility of expansion still happening, but under a different road management, I guess, with suggestions regarding Spencer Road and things like that. So for me, if there is a way to do it better, which is what I believe the officers are saying, then that leads me to refuse this, to not support this, understanding that there is, the way that it's built obviously is currently, we wouldn't vote it in today in terms of if a new school was built in. But so if there's a way for us to improve, or if they're not us, but for the situation to be improved for local residents, and we know that there's a way there, that's what I would support. So for that reason, I will not support this. Thank you.
Thank you. I will speak to the proposal. From my perspective, there are some positive points and some concerns for me in relation to the overall development. The site is definitely suitable for expansion in terms of the classroom, and I would concur with the comments that that is consistent with the planning framework for the site. The access issues do create some level of concerns. I'm less concerned about the issue I'm less concerned about the access, secondary access to the site coming through up sort of towards Babylon Bend. I acknowledge that the site has limited frontage on Queensway Road, and that single point access is always a challenge for any school. I do have reservations about dual access, the dual secondary access, full movement. I think there's some justification for a single secondary access. I don't see that there's sufficient justification to create two access points for the two additional crossovers, full movement at the edge of the site, much further down the site. So from my perspective, as I say, well, I am supportive of the principle of the development, I'm supportive of the additional additional crossover, and I'm supportive of the use. I just have reservations about a dual crossover at that location in the context of the functioning of the road. From my perspective, I, at this juncture, have reservations about an approval, but in the event that there's a determination, depending on the outcome of this determination, I may consider for a deferral. But there are my comments in relation to it. As I say, overall, I'm in support of a crossover to the secondary road system, as well as the main crossover. And my comments relate to traffic distribution and traffic on-site controls regarding full movement. Those are my comments in relation to the motion on the table. I move back to the mover for right of reply and close of debate.
Thank you. The one thing that I actually like about this plan is that it does have the dual crossover. Making an in and out means that you haven't got big vehicles, coaches having to U-turn or try to do a 3-point turn in the road. They'll come in one way and out the other way. And I'm sure that when this starts to operate, that is what they will land up doing. And again, I'm sure the residents will actually appreciate the fact that the coaches come in one way, go out the other way. It's only one direction, and there's no trying to turn a coach or land up with coaches backing into the street because a coach is blocking the access to one entrance. So having the dual turns, I think, is appropriate. There is only a small number of students here. It is only for 15 minutes of madness every day. And I think that's copable. And the fact that they are going to widen the road really does convince me in my mind that whichever way you looked at it, this expansion would have to occur. So unfortunately for the residents, they will have to undergo some form of issues while that's being changed. But I think overall, it's a school, and you're living in front of a school. You know that there's going to be parking issues. So ultimately, look, I'm happy to approve this as is, as long as that road is going to stay widened, and I'm happy with the conditions that are set out. So I hope you'll support it.
Thank you. Right of reply has been had. Debate has been closed. We are now going to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Is carried 4-1 for the minute taker. Did you get voted? Thank you. Thank you for those present. Minute taker. The time is 10:29. We are now changing to part C, which means we have say goodbye to our current members who are online and officers at the City of Wanneroo, and we will now be moving to City of Cockburn and WAPC. We have a number of people in the room. Okay, we have quite a few people online. Right. Can all those people online, I can see an Aidan O'Brien. Aidan, can you see and hear us clearly? Okay, Aidan is silent at the moment.
My apologies, I was on mute. Yes, I can see and hear you clearly.
Great, thank you. We have a group of individuals, I'm assuming that is the Cockburn officers, is that correct? There's a whole group of, well, it appears to be 6 people at the table. Could you run through who's in the room and if you could just give your names, thank you, and what your roles are?
Martin Vahala, the assessing officer.
Riley Brown, coordinator of development services.
Amit Mohi, I'm the transport engineer.
Lucia Dunstan, Manager of Development Services.
Kamran Khodareddy, Senior Environmental Health Officer.
Sorry, I missed that last bit. Could you say that again, please?
Kamran Khodareddy, Senior Environmental Health Officer.
Thank you.
Suzanne Neal, Environmental Health Officer.
Thank you. And we have member Councillor Tom Windenbar.
Weidenbar, sorry.
Weidenbar, sorry. And
Councillor Dewan, if you could just accept to be promoted to panelist, just so once again you'll be able to turn on your microphone and video and we'll be able to see you and hear you.
we're just waiting for our last panellist to be able to be viewed from within the meeting before we commence this section.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, but I can't see.
Okay.
You'll just have to accept the request when it comes up to, say, promote to panelist.
Sure.
Are you getting that request, Councillor Dewan? I just sent it to you.
Sid, I can hear everybody, and I guess you can hear me as well, but I can't see the video link here.
We're just going to take a few minutes for those online and in the room, just to get ourselves to be able to view our last member online.
Are you having any troubles with your connection, Councillor Dewan? Because I've just been trying to send you that request and it's just coming back declined automatically.
Yeah, I believe because I'm in an overseas location, the video link might not be working, but I can hear you well. And if you can hear me well, we can carry on like that if Madam Chair approves.
We can continue. When we are voting, you're going to need to tell us what your vote is so it can formally be recorded.
Sure.
So we will now commence part C. Thank you. We have our full panel members online. As been indicated, one is online and in a visual sense and the other is in a verbal sense. Members, we are going to item 1, which is the declaration of due consideration. Can I have a show of hands that you've duly considered all matters before you on this item? And member online, can you give us your response?
Yes, I have considered all the matters, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
No
That is
declarations.
unanimous. Thank you. That is unanimous from panel members. Members, are there any disclosures of interest for today's item?
None for me, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That is nil from panel members. We are now moving to item 3. There are 2 parts to item 3, 3.1a and 3.1b. We will deal first with all the presenters. After the presenters have given, we will have questions from panel members. We will then go to officers at the City of Cockburn, followed by officers from DPLH, before moving to the item itself. And we will deal with the items in the order that they appear on today's agenda. We have 3 presenters, and we will start with the first presenter, Jess Handel. Thank you. So just before you start, I'll just remind all presenters the DAP provisions are a 3-minute presentation timeframe for you. We do have the material you have provided to us already. I'll hand it over to yourself.
Thank you for allowing me to present today on behalf of Ferry Group Proprietary Limited, the owner of land 100 metres to the south of the subject land at 114 Rockingham Road, Hamilton Hill. We submit that the application should be refused because it is inconsistent with both MRS reservations and the objectives of the town planning scheme. To approve the application would result in a development that has not been contemplated by the town planning scheme, local planning policy, EPA buffer guidelines and metropolitan region scheme. The application is inconsistent with the objectives of the mixed business zone, which is to provide for a wide range of light and service industry uses. A petrol station already exists less than 100 metres from the subject land, and the co-location of 2 petrol stations next door to one another will not result in a wide range of uses as contemplated by the scheme. The community benefit in having sufficient distance between petrol stations is further reflected in Local Planning Policy 3.4 relating to service stations and motor vehicle wash facilities, and that policy advocates for service stations to be located on land which does not undermine the ability for the area to support a mix of land uses. The applicant states that this position is an objection based on commercial competition grounds. We submit that there can be no doubt that the question of whether a planning application is consistent with the objectives of the zone is a relevant planning consideration. We further state that the city's responsible authority report did not consider whether the application was consistent with the objectives of the zone. In determining whether a use will contribute towards a locality achieving a wide range of light and service industrial uses, consideration must be given to the existing business offerings in the area and the resulting needs of the community. The city officers have not carried out that level of assessment. However, for the purpose of today, we note that there are presently 11 petrol stations within a 3-kilometre radius of the subject site, including one that's 100 metres away. In addition to the primary concerns as to the incompatibility of the application with the planning framework, I encourage the members to consider additional concerns in relation to the application, the inconsistency of the application with the MRS reservation, and to approve the application despite this inconsistency would result in an approval that is inconsistent with principles of orderly and proper planning. In the event that the relevant MRS amendment is approved, Blackwood Avenue may be disconnected. This would dramatically change the operation of the petrol station, which currently relies on Blackwood Avenue for access. And last, the fact that the proposal does not adhere to the 200-metre recommended buffer distance for 24-hour operations or the 50-metre recommended buffer distance for service stations contained in EPA guidance. In short, the proposal for a service station on the subject land should be rejected primarily because it is inconsistent with the objectives of the mixed-use zone, as it would result in the establishment of a business which is already located less than 100 metres away. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. We will take the remaining two presenters and then we'll go to questions. Our next presenter is Alessandro Stagno. Would you like to present? And then we have Ben on board bar. You can choose if you want to change the order.
Is it acceptable if Ben and I present together and then take questions together at the end?
Yeah, we're always going to take questions at the end. So, yep, over to you. You've both got 3 minutes to present.
No problem. Okay, thank you, presiding member. Good morning, panel members. I'm Alessandro Stagno, Director of Apex Planning, the applicant of the service station development and incidental office component proposed at 436 Frankton Street, Cummins Hill. Of course, joined by Mr. Ben Boardbar of Transcorp, project traffic expert, speaking in support of the proposed development. We asked that we'll be able to answer questions at the end together. I'll deal with the planning issues. Mr. Boardbar will deal with the traffic and access related issues. The service station development subject to consideration this morning is worthy of approval under both the MRS and the local planning scheme, on the basis that it is entirely consistent with the planning framework and the strategic vision for the locality. Panels just have the objector, a representative of a nearby landowner who just so happens to have an operational service station on their land. The content of my deputation should address the issues raised in their deputation, but of course happy to answer any questions in respect of the issues raised by the objector at question time. In any case, the objector's issues are considered to be resolved through the assessment in the RAR as well. There was consideration of objections and submissions in the RAR. A written submission was circulated to the panel last week, which provided a succinct explanation of the planning merits of the proposal. I won't bore the panel by repeating this, but I will reiterate the fundamental points that I have raised in that submission. Since the inception of this project, our team has worked closely with the city to address the key planning issues relevant to this proposal. This has involved multiple meetings with the city's planning team and the engineering team to secure access outcomes which are both appropriate and adaptable. The city has produced a comprehensive RAR which contains a thorough town planning assessment and articulates sound reasons why this development is worthy of approval. The suitability of the service station use has been assessed in detail and demonstrated to be appropriate for the site with consideration of the EPA separation guidelines. This has been done through expert inputs that were submitted as part of the application materials, as well as the inclusion of conditions of approval which will provide certainty of satisfactory operation for the life of the development. The co-location of multiple service stations in one area is fundamentally a commercial competition issue. The planning framework is not set up to control how many of a particular facility will get established. The policy criteria under the city's service station policy that was flagged by the objector actually relates to service stations and activity centres. And it's plainly set out in the RAR that the site is not within an activity centre, or at least within an established activity centre under the city's strategic planning framework. Turning to the other critical issue for consideration by the panel this morning, the WAPC's recommendation for deferral. In this instance, we don't agree that a deferral is warranted. Instead, the panel has sufficient information available to be satisfied that this application can be approved. Firstly, it's essential to highlight that the provisions of the MRS enable development to be approved on both zoned land and reserved land. There's no statutory impediment in this regard. A portion of the site's Carrington Street frontage is affected by a totally redundant portion of the Primary Regional Roads Reserve. When this reservation is viewed in context, as I had shown in my written submission, it's a very small portion of the reserve at the very southern fringe of an interchange with the former Roe Highway extension, a project that was terminated by the state government around 7 years ago. In 2018, the state's award-winning strategic planning framework was endorsed, Perth and Pill at $3.5 million, which includes the South Metropolitan Pill Sub-Regional Planning Framework. This document, this instrument, planned the growth of our state without the Roe Highway extension. Main Roads has no project in place, as was confirmed in writing, prior to looking at this application through our pre-lodgement consultation. So therefore, there's no project in place that's linked to the reservation, and clearly there's no intention to progress the extension of Roe Highway by the state government at this point in time. The MRS amendment to remove the reservation is in its very final phase after being approved by the Governor. We don't agree with the concerns outlined in WAPC's RAR in relation to the status of the MRS amendment or that it forms an impediment for this development to be approved. It's essential that this issue be looked at in context. This is the part of my deputation where I would explain what the purpose is of this reservation, but it's actually the opposite. The reservation is without purpose. There is currently no information in front of the panel panel that indicates the reservation is anything but totally redundant. With these factors considered, it's our respectful submission to the panel that the approval of this application is consistent with all the intent of the plan. Deferral of this application is simply unnecessary, and an alternative recommendation for approval under the MRS is available, which we request to be adopted in place of deferral. Now pass over to Benham to discuss the traffic and access restrictions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Just reiterating some of the timeframes that was mentioned by Alessandro. The now redundant Rule 8 and Rule 9 project was announced by the previous government in May 2014. Following the election and change of government in March 2017, the project was cancelled. Unfortunately, for whatever reasons, the MRS amendment was not initiated till early 2013, so 6 years later. We understand that this is would have been a comprehensive MRS amendment, but 6 years, frankly, is a long time to initiate an MRS amendment. Nevertheless, we are where we are, and I just wanted to briefly address the reasons provided in main roads and DPLH submissions for deferral. Main roads reasons are basically twofold. One is that there is uncertainty about the broader strategic planning for the future road network. And second reason is given as potential future Carrington Street upgrade and land requirements. It seems to me that our colleagues at Main Roads were aware of all the work that the city had done in terms of the future planning of the road network and the Carrington Street upgrade. City has got a plan that they have prepared, and they were kind enough to share that with us, so we could make sure that our proposed development allows for the future upgrade of Carrington Street land requirement, etc. So there is no conflict there at all. So issues that raised by Main Roads have actually been addressed by the city. And the reasons raised by the department to suggest the deferral was that access within the reservation should be limited. I think no one can suggest otherwise, that that reservation is completely redundant. Nevertheless, the access that is proposed within the reservation is no more.
Councillor Turin, you're online and we can hear you speaking. Councillor Turin, are you able to continue participating in today's meeting? Just got a member.
Yes, I am available, Madam Chair.
Great, thank you. Would you like to continue speaking,
yes,
please?
Thank you. I'll go back to the WPC DPLH reasons. One was that access within the reservation should be limited. I think it's fairly obvious that that reservation is very much redundant. Nevertheless, the access proposed for this development is no more than the existing access point which this site has within the reservation, which is one crossover. So we are not proposing any additional to what is there. And as I did mention earlier, that the proposed development allows for the future upgrades of Carrington as proposed by City. The other reason given by the department was that somehow we are presuming what the Parliament may do regardless of this reservation. But first of all, the same government and same minister that cancelled the project are currently in power with a significant majority And as Alessandro mentioned, there's absolutely no indication that government may have some other plans for this area or for this reservation. So the outcome of that process is inevitable, and there is quite certain that what will happen. So in our view, I'll conclude the same as Alessandro, that the reservation is completely redundant. There is a process in place that will remove the reservation soon, and this development is capable of being approved. Thank you.
Thank you. We have had all three presenters. Are there any questions to the first three presenters before moving to officers for the relevant reports? Any questions at this juncture? There are no questions. Panel members, you can come back to these earlier presenters. We will now move first to officers at City of Cockburn. Once you finish speaking, we will then go to the officer from DPLH. Over to City.
Thanks, presiding member. The officers don't really have anything else to add apart from what was already in our responsible oral authority report. Just that we're in a position to recommend approval with some conditions, but we are happy to take any questions from any of the panel members.
Thank you. We'll first, before questions, we'll go to Aidan. Aidan from DPLH, would you like to make any comments on your RA, and then we'll go to questions from both officers.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. No, I have no further comments to add to the content of our report, except to say that as the amendment process is still underway, I'm not in a position to be able to recommend approval, which is why we've recommended deferral of the application.
Thank you. Members, are there questions from either sets of officers or any of the presenters at this junction?
Councillor Dewan, nothing from me, Madam Chair.
Yes. Oh, sorry, nothing from you. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Thank you. If there are no questions from any panel members at this juncture, we're about to move to both items. We will move to item 3.1A first. There's recommendation in the agenda. Is there a mover of the agenda recommendation? It is moved, Leo Donoghue. Is there a seconder to the agenda recommendation?
Councillor Dewan, I second it.
Thank you. Would the mover like to speak to the item?
Yes, look, I am. I'll be brief. This does fit into the mixed use zone. I don't agree that it doesn't, and I do know that there is another service station located nearby. However, I think that the approval of this is appropriate. In terms of the MRS reservation, yes, it looks like it's on its way. It's unlikely that it's going to fail. So, and given that really it intrudes into the area that contains the excess, I really cannot see that it's going to be a big issue. On that basis, I'm not concerned about the MRS zoning. As I say, I think this is a use that is suitable in this zone, and I note that the area around it is quite run down, so this would be the first of commercial redevelopment. I do note that there is a dwelling to the north, but according to the RAR, there was no response on that. Yeah, for all those reasons, I'm going to be supporting approval of this application.
Thank you. With the seconder, Councillor Tarwin Derwin. Is that how it's pronounced, Councillor?
Yeah, Councillor Tarun Dewan. Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you. Would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, I will. Thank you. So initially, I had gone through the responsible authority report, and I had concerns about the long trailers having a turning radius into the road, into the station, and then obviously I found that there was a mention of a 17 meters trailer that would take a proper sort of contour. and it would not interfere with either the electricity poles or the roads or anything else. So I'm supporting this motion. It will bring in a lot of development in the area. And of course, there are conditions which the city has formulated, and they will not issue any permits without all those conditions which revolve around waste management or noise attenuation and other relevant sort of conditions which have been mentioned in the RAR. So I will support this motion, and I will request the panel to also give it a due consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members speaking on this motion?
Thank you,
Yes.
Presiding Member. Having had a regard for the Responsible Authority report and the recommendations put to us, I am comfortable in supporting the motion and therefore the recommendation in consideration of the use. The use, we can consider the use given the planning framework. I would likewise share the view that it's not, that the use is not inconsistent with the objective of the mixed development design. Likewise, the development that is proposed to support the use is acceptable in both the context and in relation to the planning framework. The Responsible Authority report is comprehensive and addresses all of the relevant considerations. Conditions proposed are appropriate and Responsible Authority the only material consideration I think would appear with the two items is in relation to the portion that is reserved, which I will maybe speak to separately in relation to the additional item. But in this case, I'm comfortable to support the motion and therefore the application that is in front of us.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on the item? I'll speak to the item myself. I won't go over the comments that have been already made. I am supportive of the proposal. I agree that it's consistent with the planning framework, capable of being approved and consistent with the objectives. I have given due consideration to the submission, including the presentation that was provided today. And whilst I understand the comments raised, I don't agree that the proposal is not capable of being approved in that site. And in terms of the frequency and number of service stations, I'm comfortable that's consistent with the planning framework just generally. In terms of concerns relating to distances from associated uses, this matter has passed on numerous occasions to DAP that I've been present on anyway. The issues surrounding treatments of the surrounding setback distances, these are have been a matter that's been subject to quite a bit of discussion, and there's been no clear resolution as to the weight to be placed on those provisions in terms of reaching a determination on a proposal of this. We have got and determined many applications within similar distances to this proposal that are acceptable and function acceptable. Based on the design of this proposal, I'm satisfied that the proposal as designed, including the arrangement of both the vehicle movement as well as the positioning of the building, acceptable on this site. And I'm satisfied that it meets the planning matters that need to be considered. On balance, I think the proposal is appropriate. I'm also satisfied that the information provided in this draft relation to access and to the reserve and the functioning of Carrington Street are appropriate and acceptable, and in particular that the information provided by the officers in this report about any future, that includes the future considerations as it relates to the city for the road network, are acceptable. Those are my comments on the proposal. Are there any other speakers on this motion? If not, we go back to the mover for right of replying.
Look, I'd only say that I also agree with all the comments that have been made since I made mine. I would also say that I think this is a very good location for a service station and convenience store. We get a few that are actually located in places that probably are not as appropriate as this is. Carrington Street is a major road and carries a large number of traffic, and I just think the corner location So I will close debate with those comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Debate has been closed. We are going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yeah, Councillor Dewan is yes.
Thank you. That is unanimous for the minute taker. Thank you. We now move to item 3.1b. There is a motion at the beginning of the agenda. There is an alternate that has been provided as part of an R13 request, as is required under the DAP standing orders. We will deal first with the item for the item recommendation in the RA. It's a recommendation for deferral. Is there a mover of the RA recommendation? For the minute taker, the RA recommendation lapses as there is no mover. Is there a mover of the alternate recommendation that was provided as part of a R13 request for approval? It is moved, Lee O'Donoghue. Is there a seconder? Sorry, it is second, Jason Hicks. Would you like to speak to this?
Well, look, I think I've covered most of the issues. I do understand why the department has taken this particular stance, given the advice of Main Rose, but I don't agree with holding up this development, given that the MRS amendment will see the lifting of the reservation and only affects a small portion of the land along Carrington Street. So they're my comments. Thank you.
Second, like to speak to the motion.
Thank you. Further to previous comments, I likewise agree, given the carriage of broader planning, but also the specific planning in relation to the Metropolitan Region Scheme Amendment in this case. Not only am comfortable with the direction and appreciate for planning procedural tidiness, yes, of course, it would be more convenient if timing was different. However, in this case, I don't believe there's any material reason why this application can't be sought, and there are no material planning, land use or development implications that remain in the absence of that being resolved. So, in this particular case, I would support the alternate recommendation and therefore the motion that's been moved.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on the motion? I'll make a couple of comments. I concur with a number of comments already said. In my particular case, I'm not going to preempt the outcome of the MRS. However, I do note that the DAP has authority to make determination, a delegation in relation to this matter. The proposal is consistent in the majority of the planning framework, and I've already made a comment on the MRS, and is capable of being approved. The provisions that we've got in relation to the access points, as well as consideration for future road works, including dual lane there, which would ensure the operation of the facility can occur in the event that the future road design results in limitations to left in, left out on Carrington. And there's also secondary access to the site, which continues to maintain its functionality in the design provided. Based on the material that we've got in front of us, I believe the proposal is consistent and appropriate within its local context, within the zoning. And I note that there has been a significant pathway through towards in the final stages of the MRS. And I do note the comments that have been provided today in relation to any feedback at this point in time about that process. And as I've already indicated, I won't preempt the outcome, but as already been recognised today, it is a significant way along the process with actions suggesting a pathway forward. Those are my comments. If there are no other comments, I will move back to the mover for right of reply and close the debate. There's no further comment. We are going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes, for me, Councillor Dewan.
Thank you. Thank you. That is unanimous for the minute taker. We now move back to the agenda. We've completed our items 3.1. We now go to item 4. There is no DAP application. There's no Form 2 applications, no Section 31 reconsiderations. The applications relating to the Supreme Court, I have no comments on them. Is there any general business from members? There is
Nothing for me.
Thank you. There is nil general business, and accordingly, I close today's meeting at 11:03 a.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good morning.
you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Babu. बचा लिया आज तुमने भाई.